Welcome to the BEASTwriter family, where social media engagement is encouraged. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to continue and breaking down my 32 NFL draft grades, wrapping up the NFC East. If you watched my earlier podcast yesterday, I did two, one on the Washington football team, the other on the Dallas Cowboys. I also went ahead and did one 2 days prior on the Philadelphia Eagles. So before we go ahead and get started and wrap up the NFC East as it pertains to the New York Giants, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notification so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. I'm also noticing that we're picking up subscribers fairly fast right now. And so for those who are new, again, welcome to the BEASTwriter family. Just be sure that, when I formulate my podcast, that you guys are up to speed on exactly how we do them, because obviously you're new. You don't know how to formulate my podcast. So it's basically in simplest form, right? I like to break down all my podcasts into three parameters. The first one is who are the players or the coaches involved, why the move was made or potentially could be made, and last but not least parameter is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. All right, so let's not waste anyone's time. We're just going to go ahead and dive right into it and get started. All right. The New York Giants. Let's pull up the ticker right here. All right. In the first round, the New York Giants made the conscious effort and concerted effort to trade down with the Chicago Bears, moving back 9 spots from number 11 to number 20, allowing GM Ryan Pace of the Chicago Bears to make a play for Justin Fields. Now, if you watch my earlier podcast that I put up earlier, just moments before the draft, I should say a couple hours before the draft, actually, I went ahead and said Ryan Pace would trade up for Justin Fields. That exact scenario actually plays out. Here we are today and in hindsight, and that's why Dave Gettleman went ahead and made this play, simply because of the fact that Devontae Smith went off the board just one pick later to the division rival Philadelphia Eagles. So they basically wide receiver blocked the Giants from selecting a wide receiver, because obviously, even though they signed wide receiver Kenny Galladay, they needed another wide receiver because they can't count on Sterling Shepard staying healthy for a full 17-game schedule. Now they went ahead and said, you know what, if Devontae Smith is sitting there, Dave Gettleman is likely to go BPA. They would take Devontae Smith as an insurance policy for wiping their hands clean of Sterling Shepard after next season, because they can't do it this year because there's too much dead money tied to his contract. However, that's all for naught. And once Devontae Smith came off the board to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 10, that forced the Giants' hand to go ahead and trade back into the 20s, number 20 overall, and allowing the Chicago Bears to go ahead and leapfrog New England Patriots for the quarterback of their choice, which ultimately was Justin Fields. Now, when you take that a step further, peeling back another layer of the onion to get to the core, what did they get in return? Well, by moving back 9 spots, it was a 4-for-1 deal, right? They gained a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 future fourth-round pick, a 2021 fifth-round pick, which ultimate ended up being number 164, and of course the 20th overall pick overall. So sitting there at number 20, what did they do? Well, I would have liked them to go after a guy by the name of Landon Dickerson, and I know he was coming off a torn ACL. He has been dealing with ankle injuries. I talked about this on an earlier live stream when it came to the Philadelphia Eagles, because they selected Landon Dickerson at number 37. He was the first center off the board and their second-round pick. Now, the question remains to be seen. If there was a first-round talent that drops in the second round, why did he drop in the second round? Why I just pointed out the red flags that he had with the history of injuries. With that being said, again, I would have liked Landon Dickerson at number 20. Now, I know that's kind of playing a risk versus reward game, because Dave Gettleman knows that Landon Dickerson has been having some problems, kind of weak in the knees, but when healthy, the guy is the best offensive center in this year's draft class, and that includes Creed Humphrey, who went to the Kansas City Chiefs. With that being said, again, I can see why they didn't want to go with their hog molly rotation. Last year, they went out and got Andrew Thomas out of Georgia at number 4 overall. That was somewhat of a surprise pick with other higher rated offensive tackles on the board, especially when it came to my grading system. I had Jedrick Wills, obviously Mekhi Becton going off the New York Jets, and so forth, and Tristan Wirfs, of course. But hey, they went out and got Andrew Thomas, the blindside left tackle, to protect Daniel Jones. I thought that would solidify the hog molly mentality up front with Landon Dickerson. I wouldn't have been surprised if that was a pick. Ultimately, they didn't go that route. They opted to go and solidify the wide receiver position. Again, I just talked about Devontae Smith not being there, which is why they traded back. Well, you're still getting a good one, and they got Kadarius Toney at number 20. So it's a nice pick, but injury concerns prompted them to stick to the wide receiver board, which is why they went Kadarius Toney, because Landon Dickerson has had a history of injuries. I like Kadarius Toney. He's the gadget player. He can be the trio of wide receivers that really the New York Giants really need, especially with Daniel Jones' progression entering his third year. Now, if you remember correctly, Saquon Barkley is now coming back off a torn ACL, so he's going to be returning from injury. That's going to be huge for their running game. That's going to be huge for their offense overall. Now you combine that with a new wide receiver one, Kenny Galladay, teamed up with Sterling Shepard, and now you got Kadarius Toney. That's 3 wide receivers that you need in a pass-happy NFL today, because you need a trio of wide receivers, because more often than not, you're playing 3 base wide receiver sets. So that being said, I like Toney. It gives them a nice slot wide receiver to pair with the other 2 receivers that I just mentioned. So again, a nice play where they just trade back from number 11 to number 20, but picked up 3 other draft picks in return. 2 of them for the foreseeable future in 2022, a first and a 4th round pick. And they also picked up a 5th round pick here. So again, if I was to put a letter grade on this, I like the pick of Kadarius Toney. He is a top rated player on my big board. In fact, getting him at number 20 was right around the time where I think he would fall off the board. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Urban Meyer already admitted that he was going to take Kadarius Toney if he was on the board at number 25. So again, it kind of lines up and the stars align. A nice play by Dave Gettleman by getting the wide receiver, despite missing out on Devontae Smith and picking up draft capital in return. So if I was to put a letter grade on this, definitely an A. Definitely an A. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to the 2nd round pick. Azeez Ojulari. They traded down from number 42 to number 50 once again in the 2nd round, and Dave Gettleman is not known to trade down. In fact, he has never done it in the 1st round in his entire career as GM, and he did it in the 1st round. Now he trades down in the 2nd round. This is unconventional, Dave Gettleman. And with that being said, they trade down from 42 to 50. And again, it was a 2-for-1 deal where by moving down just 8 spots, they gained the 2022 3rd round pick. So not only do they have a future 2022 1st round pick, a 2022 4th round pick, but they also have a 2022 3rd round pick. So that means they have 2 1s, 2 3s, and also 2 4s. So with that being said, you can't beat this deal. You move down 8 spots, still get the pass rusher that you always coveted, that you otherwise probably would have taken that 42 anyways, right? So what does Ojulari bring to the table? He brings instant pass rush ability, right? That's something that the New York Giants do not have, especially when it comes to the 2nd level backers playing that 34 base defense. I would have liked them to go after a guy like Samuel Cosmi, however, because he would be an instant, nice plug and play. He goes 1 pick later to the Washington football team. If you want to catch that podcast, you can go ahead and do so after watching this one. But again, Ojulari is a nice sound play here. And Cosmi, although is a higher rated player than Ojulari on my big board, I can see why Dave Gettleman went this route, because again, you're filling a need. And when you look at exactly what's on their board for them, when they're looking at their depth chart and creating their depth chart, they have right tackle Matt Part. So with Matt Part sitting there, you can enter Cosmi in there. He would be the starting right tackle. He can also play blindside left tackle. But with that being said, they already have Andrew Thomas. Why not just plug him on the right side? It'll be an easier transition for him. They ultimately didn't go that route. They checked their horse on the board and said, you know what, Ojulari, we need a pass rusher. We cannot win in the NFL without pass rushers, obviously. So they made ahead and made the conscious effort to go ahead and take Ojulari. And, you know, in all honesty, they were probably neck and neck. And in that war room, they're probably guessing, you know, who do we want? Some wants Cosmi, some want Ojulari. So Ojulari ultimately has no competition, as he's going to be entrenched as the starting 3-4 outside linebacker in obvious pass rushing situations as well. So I like this pick while gaining a 2022 3rd round pick, just moving down just 8 spots and still giving a player that they always coveted that they otherwise probably would have took at 42. So if I was to put a letter grade on this, I would have to give him a letter grade of an A. 2 A's back to back. A in the 1st round, A in the 2nd round. Now let's move on to the 3rd round pick, number 71. Instead of trading up, they trade back. Just joking. Instead of trading back, they trade up. See if you're listening. So they went ahead and got Aaron Robinson. They were slated to pick at number 76. They moved up to number 71, moving up 5 spots with the Denver Broncos. And all they had to give up was yielding a 5th round pick acquired from the Chicago Bears deal, which I talked about earlier in their 1st round trade for Justin Fields. and in essence, basically giving up nothing when you think about it, right? And who do the New York Giants have at boundary cornerback? They have James Bradberry. And again, if you look at the foreseeable future, if you're doing your homework, in 2022, he has a cap savings of $13.5 million. So you don't think that James Bradberry is going to be a cap casualty, not at the end of this year. Actually, yeah, we'll be at the end of this year because 2022 will be coming up. Yeah, this is basically James Bradberry's last year. He's going to be a salary cap cut in 2022. Make no mistake about it, because you're saving $13.5 million off the books. Why not go ahead and get a boundary cornerback on a rookie contract who would be a lot cheaper than keeping James Bradberry? Makes financial sense, right? So if you're doing the math and you need a boundary cornerback, why not go ahead and get a guy like cornerback Aaron Robinson, who many believed would be a second-round grade? He slips to the third round, and this was a nice value pickup for, again, GM Dave Gettleman. This time they move up, not trade back. And again, they just signed cornerback Adoree Jackson to a 3-year, $39 million contract. So he's not going anywhere after this year or after next year. But James Bradberry definitely is. So again, if you want an insurance policy in case Bradberry gets cut, you already have that in Aaron Robinson. I really like this pick. And they did miss out on cornerback. I'm such a huge fan of Asante Samuel Jr. I can bring it up. He's the best top-rated nickelback in this entire draft class. They missed out on him in the trade down earlier in the second round. However, with that being said, I get it. And why not, if you're not going to go after a guy like Aaron Robinson, well, you still need to solidify the hog molly mentality up front, because again, who do they have right now? They have Shane Lemieux playing left guard. Why not go after a guy like Quinn Miners? So this, I would have rather them have Quinn Miners over a guy like Shane Lemieux, right? And if Daniel Jones is going to have any future success, you would want to solidify that front with Dave Gettleman's hog molly mentality. However, they didn't do it, and who benefits off that? The Denver Broncos, who got Quinn Miners until end of the third round. So with that being said, I would have liked them to have selected Quinn Miners. However, I get the pick of Aaron Robinson because, again, cornerback is a premium position, and more often than not, you're going to need 3 cornerbacks on the field at 65% of the time, 70% of the time, whatever the team you're facing. So again, I get this pick, and it adds an insurance policy for James Bradberry, who likely will be cut at the end of the year, saving the team $13.5 million off the book. So if I was to put a letter grade on this, I like the pick. I like Quinn Miners a little bit more. However, with that being said, you have to love this pick. Like this pick. I'm going to give him a solid B. All right. Now in the fourth round, put up the ticker. They went ahead and got an outside linebacker using the shotgun approach with Elerson Smith in the fourth round, number 116. I thought this was a reached need-based pick. I didn't like the pick. I thought Bobby Brown, the third, who went to the LA Rams, was a solid, better player, especially in that 3-4 nose tackle position. He would have been an instant plug-and-play. You can team up next to Dexter Lawrence, and they would have had solidified the front. However, along with Leonard Williams. But with that being said, they didn't go that route. They went the shotgun approach with Elerson Smith. Again, this is an instant plug-and-play opportunity. If Bobby Brown was the option, he wasn't. And this is going to create competition, because at the end of the day, the New York Giants don't have much at outside linebacker, so there's really no competition. Just like with Ojulari, there's no competition with him. Elerson Smith is going to make the team, but I can't. What else am I going to say? I really liked them. If they would have, how do you say this? They would have been better served to get Bobby Brown the third, because again, he would have been an instant plug and play over Austin Johnson, I should say, the starting nose tackle right now, coming out of Penn State, who I liked coming out of college. However, they didn't go that route. And gosh, if they would have went that route, I would have given him an A grade because I like Bobby Brown the third. They didn't. They went Elerson Smith. So I'm going to have to give him a letter grade of a C, because this was obviously a reach need-based pick. All right. Just got to say about that. All right. Now let's talk about the remaining draft pick selections here. Well, they got Garrett Brightwell, the running back, in the 6th round, number 196. And they also got cornerback Rodarius Williams, also in the 6th round, number 201. So if I was to put a letter grade on this, obviously I like the picks that were made at the top of the day 1 and day 2. I like Azeez Ojulari. I obviously like Kadarius Toney. They also pick up 3 future high-round picks in return, a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th round pick. So anytime you get a 1st, 3rd, and a 4th round pick, and you're going into next year's draft Well, you got 2 1s, 2 3s, and now 2 4s. You can leverage that how you see fit and really manipulate the draft how you want. So again, my hat's off to Dave Gettleman for doing that and still landing the players that they wanted, that they otherwise probably would have took outside of Kadarius Toney, obviously. And Dave Gettleman hit it out of the ballpark. So if I was to put a letter grade on this draft class, they filled the needs without diminishing the value of the pick early on, got draft picks and mortgaged their future in a positive way by go ahead and adding needed draft capital for 2022 NFL draft. I like the plays that were made, and Dave Gettleman just set this team up extremely, extremely well. I'm going to have to give him a letter grade of an A. A letter grade of an A. And again, I don't give too many A's. I give some B's, but not too many A's. There's only 2 teams that got A grades aside from the New York Giants. Those teams both came out of the AFC West. And you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. So, Dave Gettleman, you are on par with George Payton, and you are on par with Brett Veach. Good job, Dave Gettleman. Go Big Blue. And that's it for the draft grades when it comes to the New York Giants. So, that's it for this podcast. If you like my analysis and insights, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. BEASTwriter family, what are your thoughts? I love engaging with you on this platform. Please leave your comments. And again, welcome to the BEASTwriter family. That's it for this podcast. Like I said, wrapping up the NFC East. I'll be back on again later to talk about the NFC North as we break into that division and the draft grades there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. BEASTwriter out.